Getting started, and now we're just going to do our little intro. Well, thanks everybody, and welcome to Transformational Tuesdays. I'm Teresa Velardi, your host for this time of inspiration, education, motivation, and conversation focused on key ingredients necessary to create positive change in our lives, which I call transformation. Now, if you're hearing the sound of my voice or if you're looking at my face, you are already in a transformational conversation. Otherwise, you would not be here. So welcome, welcome, welcome. And, you know, we've been talking about, for the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about what's your story. And we talked about an opportunity to write in a book. And the conversation that we're having today with Tamra Blankenship is all about your story and your personal why you do what you do, what your purpose is, and how staying in your why is the way to go. So let me just give you some information about what we're going to talk about today, and then I'm going to also introduce Tamra to you, give you a little information about her. I'm so excited about this conversation. This is one of my favorite people in the entire world. So, yeah. So, knowing your own why. And as I said before, we had this conversation about your story. So after discovering your own story, can you unlock your why that is contained between the words? Do you know why how you've been fully invested, or why you've been fully invested in your story? And let's explore a new possibility with Tamra. So she's going to show us how to bring balance into some of the behaviors and questions that keep us stuck in our old story. Questions like, why does this keep happening to me? Or why am I so misunderstood? Anybody relate to that? Raise your hand if you do, because I'm raising my hand. Learn how to bring balance to your life, to make peace with your own beliefs, and recognize when you're invested in someone else's belief. Now, we talked about that big time in the last couple of conversations, and if you didn't hear them, just go to transformationaltuesdays.com/replays and listen to those. What's your story part 1 and what's your story part 2 will give you more information on how you can become more invested in your own belief and write your own story rather than being stuck in someone else's story that they've written for you, so to speak. So Tamra Blankenship has a lot of little designations after her name: CHAC, AADP. She's a relationship advisor helping children and adults form meaningful and loving relationships. As a mother herself, she has found her passion in helping families with various challenges in achieving how to handle the balance of family life. Her passion for holistic health and wellness has ignited was ignited when her children were having trouble focusing in school, and she was determined to search for better ways to serve the mind, body, and spirit connection to help her own children. She discovered food, emotions, and relationships to have crucial effects on how we perceive ourselves. I'm relating. Yes, indeed. Tamra's health and wellness practice focuses on how to be your authentic self and love the life you have been gifted. As a single mother of 3, Tamra is sensitive to the needs and concerns of family on their journeys. Tamra's expertise and natural instinct regarding food, emotions, and relationships helps her to serve clients going through academic struggles, love relationships, divorce, food struggles, children, adult communication issues, and most of all, something that we all need to know more about, which is self-love. She is certified by the American Association of Drugless Practitioners and a graduate of the prestigious Institute for Integrative Nutrition in New York City. As a certified holistic health coach, certified yoga teacher, certified hypnotherapist, she served as deacon and studied Tibetan studies. She offers a wide variety of formats, from online self-study programs, individual to group sessions, tribal roots retreats around the world, webinars and seminars, also workshops on heartfelt communication, communication through and after divorce and kids, meditation, mala, and setting your intention for a passionate life, just to list a few. This woman has some tricks up her sleeve on how to help people, do you think? So to contact Tamra, you can go to her website, www.emotionalwellnessforlife.com, and we'll give you that contact information again throughout the conversation. And a huge welcome and a big hug for you, Tamra.
Oh, thank you.
Did I say Tanya?
No, you said Tamra.
I said Tamra. I thought so. So hi. And hi, Wanda. Welcome. I see you fiddling there with your iPad. Welcome. Good morning. So I am so excited to have you here, and so much of what you do is so very much in alignment with Transformational Tuesdays, because as you know, and as you are well aware through your own practice and through your own life, we are all on a transformational journey. Absolutely. Everybody.
Absolutely.
From moment to moment, nothing is ever the same. So we will definitely be having that conversation. This conversation falls right into Transformational Tuesdays. And one of the things that we want to talk about today, we want to start with, is knowing your why. Now, as you heard me say a little earlier, we've been in this conversation about what's your story, and it's all relative to what we're going to talk about today. So what do you mean when you say knowing your why?
So knowing your why is all about understanding why you do what you do. So a lot of this is kind of just really more an investment in knowing the emotional why. And there's many reasons we do things. Sometimes they're out of responsibility or obligation, but the most important one to understand is when you do things that fill your joy. This is all about doing things that are resonant with your truth, knowing who you are and why you long for the things that you long for. So I believe there are two different kinds of emotional whys. There's the emotional why that comes from you, and another one where it comes from others. So understanding the difference of when you do one over the other. I consider the why that you do for other people more of an ego investment of that perception. It's not a bad thing. It's just what you do when you're more invested in understanding the ego's attachment to something that you're doing. The ego's not right or wrong, good or bad. It just does what it does to provide safety. It's our fight or flight mechanism. And it's there to establish a better understanding of what you do when you do it, if that makes any sense.
That makes sense. So when we're more invested in others than we are in ourselves, we've got our ego going on. And
exactly.
When we're invested in ourselves, what part of us is more apparent in that situation?
Well, when we're invested mostly in the perception of other people, we're living more in an external reality instead of knowing our true self. So that would be what we would call an unconscious truth, not our inner guidance, our inner wisdom. Mm-hmm. That is more of a sense of doing something to make somebody else feel value or feel good. It's not necessarily, like I said, it's not a bad thing. It just can build up a story of resentment or anger within you if you're doing it with the unconscious act in play. So this, again, is one of those times where you have to dial in and ask yourself, okay, I'm doing this for somebody else, but where is my joy in it? Am I attached to hearing a thank you or a gratitude for something that I'm doing? Or am I doing it because it makes me feel joyful to serve, to do something for someone else?
Yeah, the joy is the key, I think, more than anything else.
Joy is our inner passion, absolutely. That's how we connect to that.
Yeah.
Knowing, exactly.
Yeah, and I love that. And so we're going to have a little bit more information about joy versus happiness in a few minutes. I'm going to ask you that question. But first, I want to talk about balance and being out of balance with your joy. What does out of balance joy look or feel like to the average person? And here's something else I want to ask you as you answer this question. Is it something that we can consciously be aware of, or is it usually something that happens in the background that we have to go searching for?
Out of balance joy is what I like to call dog, duty, obligation, and guilt. Quite often when we are working in an out of balance joy language, we're, again, living in a more unconscious state of being. So what that would look like is if you are doing something and you find yourself saying, I don't feel respected or appreciated, or I don't feel like somebody like appreciated the efforts that I put forward. And you start really understanding, where was my attachment? Was my attachment in somebody else bringing me value in who I am? Or am I doing it and the act itself brings me value? So that's where you would recognize, am I doing this out of duty, guilt, or obligation? Is this something I feel that I must do for someone else? Or am I feeling obligated? They made me feel uncomfortable and now I have to follow through, or because I said I would do it, now I'm obligated to follow through, which there's a gray area there, but got to understand if you're in dog or if you're in your guilt about things versus being in your truth.
Wow.
So going to work would be an obligation, right? Or a duty. And if you don't go to work and you don't have money to pay your bills, that would be, you'd be guilty, right?
Yeah.
So that is a proper form of using dog when you need it to survive. But when it's out of balance and you run yourself ragged doing things like maybe you're active in church or you're active in a community, you're constantly putting yourself out, but you're not feeling the value given back. And it's not their fault, it's actually your own.
Wow. So, so where I'm overextending myself, and to use your illustration that you have, right, you just brought forth, if I'm overextending myself in what I do for others, I'm creating, and I'm doing it out of duty, obligation, or guilt. I'm standing in somebody else's why and not my own.
Exactly. You're trying to seek validation of who you are based on other people's whys instead of your own why. Yeah. So when you get say someone asks you to do something and you're in a space where you're saying, well, I understand they need me to do this, so you're going to put yourself out there and you're going to go and do something that you're uncomfortable doing, or maybe you don't have time to do, and you stretch yourself out so thin, and you start feeling this anxiety of unexpressed energy within you that you are not valuing. So like, I'm trying to think of a real quick example. I think back to myself when I used to be a deacon, and I was in charge of the preschool board at the church, and my husband was traveling. I was teaching Sunday school. I had 2 little boys, and I was also pregnant with my daughter. And on top of that, I started a cake business because I thought I could do everything. I had no sense of boundaries on my no. So everything was yes. So when anybody asked me to do something, I was like, sure, no problem. I would be up until 2 a.m, pregnant, doing things that were just unhealthy and unwise for my baby, for myself, to be able to think clear. And I really just hit that brick wall and realized, wow, I'm in a space where no longer can I give, and my bucket is empty, and it never should be that way, because I'm never filling my bucket back up. And that brick wall was the lesson of understanding the value of no, and understanding why I was doing things instead of doing them for I was kind of doing things for everybody else. I ended up cruising for a bruising, and gave myself a real good life lesson, and understand that yes is not the right thing sometimes. Sometimes my yes is more harmful to others and myself. So putting that back in balance was a very good lesson for me. That's that understanding of doing it for someone other than yourself.
What you just said is so valuable, because we've been having this conversation about no is a complete sentence. And, people who come to Transformational Tuesdays all the time, they've heard me say that. And that's something that I had a really hard time learning. And since it's so attached to our joy, and can you, just before we go on to asking you about balance with joy and what happens when it gets out of balance, this is one of the ways that it gets out of balance, by us not saying no when we really need
big way.
So how, with all that you had going on, how did you get out of that? I'm going to call it insanity for everybody else, because I'm saying that with love in my heart for you, because I know, I can do that. I can do that. And I shared this before, and I'll share it with you now, because I don't think you've ever heard this, but my brother-in-law used to say to me, Teresa, you do so many things for so many people, you have to learn how to say no. Okay. And no is a complete sentence, and you don't have to give it. And he gave me this whole lesson on no. And I'm like, all right. So then he would call me up and he would say, Teresa, I need to blah, 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 blah. Can you help me? And I'd say, okay, I think I can do it. He says, no, you're supposed to say no. He would test me on this. So it was hysterical. And I had to learn to say no. So how did you learn to say no? What was something that you can give our listeners and people who are watching this? What can you tell people about taking the first step to living more in your purpose rather than somebody else's?
Right. Well, like I said, when I hit that brick wall, harsh reality hit me. I all of a sudden had a newborn baby. As I said, my husband was traveling and we started having financial struggles. So the mountain, as the way I'd love to put it, is the mountain just kept on getting bigger and bigger and bigger until I would sit and confront it. So I started leaning on other people thinking, well, I helped all these other people out. They can obviously support me because, I would have done that for them. Big sign right there is my attachment to my gift giving or my generosity had strings attached, that if I would do these things for other people, then someday they would pay me back. Well, that is not exactly being in alignment with joy at all. That's actually loving with attachments. That's conditional love versus unconditional love. So I had to start recognizing that program of being a program, for lack of a better word, that my belief system was invested in, if I do on for others, they would do on for me. That's not reality at all. That is, again, conditional love. So I had to learn to love myself and to recognize the only person who's going to take care of me was me. So I switched everything around. I started looking at everything that I was doing. What was serving me and why? Where was I in resonance with my truth? And where did I start finding that people were continuing, and I don't mean this in a victim sense, but where people would continue to lean on me and I had no stance. I was like a three-legged chair. I couldn't hold them any longer. And I recognized I was starting to be the enabler. I was serving them in an unhealthy way by doing things for them. I wasn't providing them the opportunity for them to do it for themselves either. So I had learned a lot in that time where being the enabler was toxic for so many people outside of me and me myself. So just recognizing being an enabler and being a doer really ended up making so many people unhealthy around me. Mm-hmm. So I started really being more choosy with who I spent my time with and how I said yes and when I said yes. I made sure that I had space to follow through on my yes. And really just got invested in my why versus somebody else's. I valued myself over others. Now, I don't mean to say that I don't value other people, because that's not at all what I'm saying. I started to recognize that my bucket was empty, that I no longer could provide a space of value for other people. And so I had to go in deep, really deep, and really understand, the values inside me. And it's really important to be authentic with who I am and follow that resonance versus the vision of what I thought everyone else wanted me to be. So in other words, not living to what I believed they thought I should be, but follow who I truly am and really resonate with that truth. Yeah. So again, being myself, being authentic.
And I think that's one of the magic words. And I think that a lot of people overuse the word authentic, but I think it's directly attached to our joy. So what happens when our joy is out of balance?
Well, when our joy is out of balance, that's when all the story of resentment is built. We start carrying on this projection that we're the victim of our experiences, but the truth is everything's happening for us, not to us. So if you start shifting,
say it again.
Everything is happening for us, not to us. It is so important to really understand that experience is opportunity, not to validate the sense of lack, but the sense of abundance. So again, to recognize the opportunity is the abundance, not the story of lack. We so often look at the dark side. We recognize our attachments, what I like to call the dark side. And really the light side is the let go, the surrender, the acceptance of something being different than what it is. And if we can start to live in that space, we can find much more opportunity, much more joy in our life. But it's getting into a pattern of recognizing, how do I minimize my why? Where is my joy? What brings me joy? And really understanding when joy is out of balance and what it really feels like is the story of the victim story in essence. I mean, it really creates these funny little things like, why did that happen? Didn't they understand me? What is that all about? We start really carrying on and taking things personal that really aren't personal at all. They're opportunities, and we're missing them because we're living in this story that it's our fault instead of seeing what's possible.
Yeah, so true. Oh my goodness. So you said that everything is happening for us, not to us. And if we keep that mindset, we can't go really into that victim role, which is where I believe things like unforgiveness and blame and even resentment. Once, let's talk about resentment a little bit. What exactly is resentment? Because I have a definition, but before I even say what my definition is, I want to know what the truth is. I don't think my definition is necessarily the truth.
I look at the word resentment more on an emotional level. So I think of resentment as someone taking advantage or you not being seen or misunderstood, and you create a story around that, which keeps you in the story of collapse. It's more of the resentment when somebody does something and they didn't do what you expected. You create a story around that, which indicates a core wounding, like I'm not valuable, I'm not lovable. There's so many of them. It's just a sense of lack is really the best way to wrap it up. So resentment is your story of lack. It really keeps you in a collapse state.
Define collapse for people who are like wondering what is talking about. I know because you and I are working together on some things, and I've discovered what it means to be in a state of collapse. So for our people that are listening and watching, let them know what you mean by that.
So a state of collapse, the way I define the state of collapse, is when you're living in the lie versus your truth. It's all the programming and belief systems that you think you are, but really are not. They're just all these things that you've invested in. A great example would be if I don't smile, everyone's going to think I'm grumpy. You know, that idea that what other people perceive you to be is more important than your own value. So that is what I call lies that we tell ourselves to play it small, to stay in a very stuck, minimized space. So collapse is anything that does not bring you to joy, anything that blocks you from feeling connected to yourself, anything that is a sense of defeat, a lack of just a sense of self.
So give us an example.
An example of being in collapse?
Being collapse.
A lot of times people will come seeking my support when they're in a relationship where they feel like they have no voice. They feel like every time they share how they feel, the other person in the relationship will minimize how they feel. That would be an awesome experience of practicing to have a voice instead of believing that you have no voice and therefore this relationship is done. Mm-hmm. It could be, it's very possible that it is, but it could also be an opportunity for you to practice standing in your truth and knowing who you truly are. Mm-hmm. So, a lot of divorces, I believe, come from miscommunication, missed opportunities, misunderstandings. And that sense of disconnection can lead you to believe that you are not valuable or not important. So you'll stop talking, you'll start withholding, and you'll start going deeper, in a negative way without sharing. Going in to share is a good thing. Going in to stop communicating is a bad thing.
Yeah.
There's a very important balance there to understand. When you go in and seek truth for self, you want to do that to lift yourself. When you start withholding your truth and start minimizing and shrinking yourself, you start feeling all the stories of abandonment and stories of lack and being in the collapse and being more invested in that, then you play that out in your life and you continue to have those experiences again and again until you finally step into that space and go, you know what? This isn't serving me anymore. I have more to say. I have more to express. I have more to share. And then you start dialing into that. But that's when you start going out and exploring for more tools to get you back in balance.
Yeah, I think a great example. And it's not just related to relationship to another person, but in relationship to yourself too. Mm-hmm. Like when I find myself losing my voice, my own personal empowerment, and giving that over to circumstances, situations, things that drag me down or have dragged me down in the past, like ice cream. It's all.
You can indulge once in a while, but it all.
When I allow it to take over, and put me in that place of feeling like this is happening to me and not for me, like without the awareness of, okay, why am I sitting with whatever it is that's in front of me with a spoon? What am I, instead of looking for the reason why and making it different, I can get a serious case of the I don't want to say it on there. I don't want to say it on here because it's bad. I just beat myself up.
You're around love. Everyone loves you.
So that's the thing. So knowing the difference and being able to to discern it. I think discernment is the key more than anything else. And knowing how, staying away from certain things would be more beneficial to me and will be happening for me, and discerning the behavior, utilizing the information. That's when the situation is happening for me. And when I'm in that, this is making me fall apart, or the lack mindset, that's when I perceive it's happening to me. So I get that definition clear. So and I'm going to ask you this question: what is some way that we can make the decision before we take an action that's going to put us in a place of the sitting with the ice cream in front of me?
Mm-hmm. So
I ask this not just for myself, but for everyone else who's
I totally hear
whatever.
you. Yeah.
Whether it's cigarettes, whether it's shopping, whether
any bypass,
anything that is, what did you say, a bypass?
Any bypass, yes. Anything. It could be even withholding. You could stop eating. You could exercise. You could be a workaholic. There's so many forms of bypass. Just everyone's got a different one. The difference is being aware, and the other, obviously, the unaware aspect of detachment. So, recognizing when you're in your process of collapse, when you're in that state of doing something that doesn't serve you, why are you there? It's not necessarily making the mistake that's the problem. It's more about the unconscious act that you're in that space and how long you stay. We're all going to slip. We're all going to go back into doing things that don't serve us, because that is the unconscious state. We need to have those unconscious moments to recognize when we're slipping, when we're not conscious. Think about it this way. Do you know when you fall asleep, or do you know when you wake up? We always know when we wake up. We don't really know when we fall asleep. Not really. I mean, yeah, there's, between this time and this time, if you're monitoring it on one of those systems, but it really isn't about knowing when you fell out of consciousness. It's knowing when you've woken up. So life about enlightenment, or if you're trying to seek enlightenment, it's about the number of moments that you're conscious. It's not about collecting moments of unconsciousness. So instead of focusing on how do I stop myself before I get there, it's more about understanding I'm there, what's going on, why am I there? Understanding the why again. It's right back to that why. Why you do what you do and how you do it.
You just had light bulb moments and chills on me.
So don't punish yourself for scooping ice cream or indulging in a moment. Take that savory bite of ice cream and celebrate it and really tend to your soul at that moment. Do the self-care. I'm in a space where I'm looking at this bowl of ice cream and I'm really going to enjoy this because at this very moment, I need this to get beyond where I believe I can't be. So use it. Use that collapse as a tool to shift you into more potential, more possibilities. Instead of punishing yourself for doing something. If we continue to be attached to things being different, we create that story in ourselves of defeat and pain again and again and again. Yeah. And it ends up being a cycle we can't step out of. It can take weeks before we become aware that we're continuing to live in the story of defeat. So shifting, as you were going through, I know you were about to say.
I'm like so all over this conversation right now. So, and I know that so are our listeners. I'm getting a couple of texts here. So I want to invite everyone. We are at the half-hour mark already. So where does the time go? What I want to invite everyone to do is if you have a question for Tamra and you are able to see the screen somehow, there is a chat box there. I'm going to put a phone number. It's 570-230-4185. Now, if you have a question or a comment for Tamra, just text me at that number, 570-230-4185, and I'll make sure that I open up your line so that you can ask your question. I'm sure everybody has a bunch of them, especially now since we bought that thing, and everybody's looking, okay, how am I doing my past thing? Am I echoing?
A little bit.
I am echoing. I don't know why, but okay. So let me try this. I'm going to open the line for Beth Johnson from the International Women's Leadership Association, who I know is listening.
Hello.
Hi, Beth.
How are you? What a great conversation. This isn't going to fit in necessarily to exactly where the conversation just ended, but somewhere along it, during the conversation, I thought what women so often do in asking someone, and we've spoken about this so many times, Teresa, is we really project the answer we want or the answer we hope we're going to get. It's a type of permission or validation. So I guess it goes back to the resentment part of the conversation.
Right.
And we're really not seeking that person's their authentic opinion. We want them to agree with our opinion. And when that doesn't automatically happen, and it doesn't automatically happen all of the time, we feel less than, we feel disappointed, we feel that resentment. So I always wonder why women continue to need that validation of themselves when they already have and are certainly entitled to that very strong opinion of themselves, because as we always say, somebody else's opinion of you is none of your business. So why do we keep doing that? Why do we keep projecting what we want other people to it's like that old thing you see on television all the time. A woman has something on and says, do you like this? Clearly she does, and he's trying to be honest, and if he doesn't, there's all kinds of backfire. Or does this make me look fat? That question kind of a thing. So we're really not always looking for honesty. We're looking for agreement.
Validation, right. Mm-hmm.
Total validation.
Yeah.
And I always say to women, are you asking me or are you telling me?
Good girl.
Because if you're asking me, I will never not give you my honest opinion, as sometimes gently as you think you have to, or sometimes as boldly as you need to. But if you ask me, I will tell you. Otherwise, you tell me. Don't ask me, you tell me. And I just find I experience that so often, more so with women. Men just don't seem to, care as much about that kind of stuff. It doesn't matter to them. But women on a very competitive level, mostly with themselves, it matters a great deal.
Mm-hmm. So were you done? I don't want to interrupt.
Yes.
Oh, great.
Thank you.
Sure. Actually, all of that is about programming. And I know I kind of touched a little bit about programming, but what programming is what our parents, our society, culture, heritage, history, all of that has been teaching us as women for years. So, and it starts at the 0 to 3, where we really don't have much of a voice, and we're taking ownership of the collective instead of our own truths. So I'm hearing myself twice. I hope you guys aren't.
No, I hear you fine.
Okay,
I hear you
awesome.
fine.
Like, then it's just me. Okay, so understanding that it's not that it's kind of like it's a continuing pattern over and over time that has been proven that as women, we really don't have a collective voice. And I'm not trying to get a whole women's right thing going here, but just to understand as a women's collective energy, we have been repressed for a long time about having a voice. And so we have been invested in the shell, the image, the way we are looked at. So you think of like trophy wives or women who focus on the way they look, or, you know, it could even be the opposite. Some women will minimize the way they look so they're not seen. These are all programs of investments in who we believe we are versus not who we truly are. Does that make sense? Oh, you may not be on it anymore. So it's more about.
I actually unmuted her. I muted her because feedback comes from when the call, the lines are open. So Beth, did that answer your question? Oops, hang on a second. Hold on. I'm sorry. Beth?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here. Thank you.
Did that answer your question, or would you, because I can go deeper. That's a big question.
No, it does. And more than a question, I think it was a statement. And of course, that's one of the reasons that the International Women's Leadership Association exists. It is because of that collective energy to have that stronger, more vibrating voice of women, you know, collectively. So yes, really, so thank you.
It's really about discovering your sense of self. Women live in a space where we try to validate ourselves through other people. One thing we didn't hit today that I really wanted to share with you guys is to understand happiness versus joy. And happiness is external. We collect in a series of happinesses, and we believe that brings us joy, but it's actually not our truth. It's joy is inside us, and we project joy out to have happy experiences. But unfortunately, we've been taught in the program that it's the other way. We have to have happy experiences to find joy, but it's actually backwards. So if you can understand, it's the same exact program that you're talking about. Women who have lost their voice or feel like they need validation, how awesome are you to provide a space for them to find a voice and to have an experience where they can practice those things, because that's essential. We need a space to be playful and creative with it. So that is dynamic. So thank you for that.
I think we lost her.
Okay.
I'm looking to see if we lost her, but while she dropped off. Okay, so here's another thing that I wanted to bring to you. Somebody in the chat box said, Liz says, back to the beginning on the different emotional why, 1 on ego and 2 from others. Have you researched into anything to do with gender differences with what we're talking about today? She's curious if men versus women tend to be more able to be type 1 or type 2, like when you focus on your own why, or you're driven by somebody else's and using your ego to get through life. So is there a difference between men and women when this is concerned?
Yes and no. Yes, in the way it's projected out. The way women do it is different. We are more validated. Our unconditional love language is based on safety. Men's are based on being respected. So the way they project the energy out is different because of our love languages are different. So yes, in that way, but yes, we both still express them. So no, essentially, because we all have the same story of emotional why, understanding. Like, men will work for a business, and they believe their value of who they are is through work. So they will quite often become workaholics or get invested in a more left brain, for lack of a better expression, left brain process where they have, checks and balances and more systematic, where women are more emotional. We're more right brain invested for the most part. And I'm not saying everybody, I hate talking in absolutes. And this is kind of one of those absolutes. So understanding, that there are different expressions and everyone's on a different spectrum of those pieces. So some people maybe a man happens to be more emotionally dialed in, so he'd be more invested in feeling safe, where there might be a woman who's more invested in being respected. So it's just different emotional ranges. I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, that answers that question. And with that being said, I want to open the line for Karen Mayfield from Wake Up Women, who just texted me and said, women have not spoke up because we've had nothing to say. But that's not the case now. And we are speaking up and we have plenty to say. We were asleep and now we're waking up. Hi, Karen. How are you?
I'm good. That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
When you were saying it. Well, someone asked me the other day, they were like, Karen, you're such a women's advocate and all this kind of stuff. Are you going to vote for Hillary? And I said, it's not even a matter right now if she even wins the presidency. Yes, that would be great because, yes, she's a woman and all those things. But the thing is that at her age, and she's about 67, she has broken the ceiling. It's gone. It can't be back. It's not ever going to come back. And now for the rest of us, I mean, in a sense, she's been our crusader to get out there and go for it. And and so there she is. The glass ceiling is gone. And I think that now then we are going to be free to soar because we don't have any barriers. The obstacles are beginning to fall away. They're just being shattered all the time now. And for so long, we were asleep. And it is time for us to wake up and speak up and stand up and not stand down anymore and not stand for stuff that is not win, win, win all the way across. Because women, when we come together and we join forces, we are a mighty power to deal with. And I think our time is now.
What do you think, Tamra?
I think it is powerful and impactful that we do have an opportunity now to have an amazing voice. I think it's also important to celebrate everyone having a voice and giving the gifts of unconditional love, having a true sense of self and finding out what that means for you. So when you're doing those voice actions, to do it with love, neutrality.
Awesome. Thanks, Karen. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So anyone else, if you have something to say, please text me at 570-230-4185. I love that what Karen just brought to the table, because about waking up and that we're realizing that it's time to wake up. And I think the feminine energy of this world is becoming more pronounced, in that women are finally waking up to who they are. And it's people like you, Tamra, that are helping us to do this. So what I want to ask you is, if someone wants to know more about how they can work with you in order to be able to turn their own light on, let's say, Marianne Williamson says that everybody is shining. We all have our own lights and we're shining, and we have been clouded. We have been clouded by our experience. We have been clouded by our relationships. We've been clouded with whatever. And our job is to take away the cloud covering so that people can see us more. And Michelangelo also said that when he got when he was interviewed about his famous statue, the Pieta, Pieta, and that's the statue of Mary holding Jesus after the crucifixion. And when he was questioned about how he created this, he said it was always there. His job was to take away the excess stone. So our job is to clear away the cloud covering that we're under so that we can let our light shine. How can people connect with you in order to be able to begin that conversation with you so that they can stand in their own power, stand in their own knowing and their own why, and be more of who they were created to be authentically.
Yeah, I definitely think it's important to start off with having a great conversation and understanding where you stand and seeing if there's a space for you where we can shift issues into opportunities and stop being invested in this belief that something is not serving you. So I'm going to offer a opportunity to have a 20-minute free phone conversation with me. If you just have to go to my website, and I believe you have that posted, Emotional Wellness for Life. And on Let's Work Together, down at the bottom, you'll see an opportunity to sign up and just get invested and spend some time in doing some self-checks. And really, there is a little survey that's attached to that that'll get us to work right away, so that the time is used to a ample energy where you can actually shift things right away in our first conversation.
Yeah, that's awesome. So if you want to get to know a little bit more about what Tamra does and how she can help you to, be more in tune with who you are and your why, just go to emotionalwellnessforlife.com. And when you get there, there's a way for you to fill out the questionnaire, correct?
Yep.
And then Tamra will schedule with you a 20-minute complimentary call. Now, let me tell you something. This lady knows her stuff. So when you do this, be prepared for information that's going to move you into a different place, even in those 20 minutes. So what I would suggest for you, and I suggest that every one of you who's listening to the sound of my voice, take advantage of this opportunity. This is a gift. This, my friends, is a gift, and it's for Transformational Tuesdays, people to really begin their own transformation. Actually, you're already in transformation. Take another step on your own transformation. And I can tell you that Tamra has helped me a lot to become more aware and more awake and more alive and more willing to do things differently and break those chains of limiting beliefs that were planted years and years and years ago and are somebody else's why, and really step into my own power and my why. So go to emotionalwellnessforlife.com, get that questionnaire, fill it out as authentically as you possibly can, get it back to Tamra, and get on the phone with her for a free 20 minutes. It'll be the best 20 minutes you've invested in yourself in a long time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for joining. Really appreciated hearing all the insight. Thank you very much.
And I think that a lot of people, and I love the question that you asked before and what Karen had said, we don't know when we fall asleep, but we do know when we wake up. Yes. And it's funny, last night I was like, man, I must have gone out like the light. I turn on the Golden Girls at my usual time to get into bed is about 11 o'clock. And I turn on the Golden Girls every night. And I woke up this morning and I went, oh, it's morning already? And what was I watching last night? And what episode was it? And it was, all I knew was that Rose had moved out and the girls were going to visit her at her new place. And that was it. And that was like 5 minutes into the television. So I know when I fell asleep last night, but I definitely know it's better to wake up in the morning. So, and that's irrelevant. When you fall asleep is really irrelevant. It's when you wake up that with the power.
Exactly. It's the collective moments of consciousness. Exactly.
Exactly.
We don't need to punish ourselves for our unconscious moments. Yeah. Absolutely. Free yourself.
Yeah, I love the joy versus happiness. Can we talk a little bit more about that? Because you really have great insight into this, and that would be helpful to a lot of people. I think a lot of people ask, "Are you happy?" And some people will say, I have a friend who said to me all the time, Teresa, I don't think I've ever been happy in my life.
Oh.
So how do you discern what happiness is versus whether or not you are living joyfully?
Great question. That is truly important. That when you don't know if you're happy or not, it's because you really don't know who you are. You've invested so much in the outer world that you've lost the sense of your own truth. So moments like that are where meditation is so essential. It's really this beautiful opportunity if you can learn to meditate. Some people have a really hard time with that. There's so many different ways to meditate, so it's not as intimidating as most people believe. But that is a great opportunity when someone feels that dialed out that they can't figure out where they begin and where somebody else, where they end and somebody else begins. So understanding that piece is essential. They're what I call completely enmeshed with society. They have literally not really known. They've minimized their voice, their truth, their thoughts for so long. They've really lost the ability to hear it. So that's why it's important to kind of quiet down. I don't believe we can ever truly quiet the mind. I call it breath between the thoughts. And what that is you allow one story to come in, you pause, and you allow the next story to come in. You don't allow them to enmesh, because otherwise you're constantly running that ticker like of your mind's just running and chasing and chasing and chasing. So I love to use the analogy of you're looking at the clouds as the stories and you're focusing on the sky. You don't make the clouds wrong. They're doing what they have to do. They're just present. They're just going to keep on flowing in the sky, but you're focusing on the beauty beyond that cloud. The abundance of the sky is where your truth lies. And the stories are just there to help you see the sky. They're just the contrast. So that really is about creating that space for yourself to be present.
That's awesome. I love the analogy with the clouds and the sky. I love that. It's like, it's all part of the bigger picture. And if you stay focused on
turns into a black cloud. You don't want a black cloud.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly. So that was really helpful. And this part of waking up. So how does one actually, is there something that you know of that is like a pivotal moment that people become aware of when they're living in someone else's story or living in somebody else's why, rather than being invested in their own? Is there one thing or two things that you know of that you've heard through your practice that you can tell people to watch for, like when they're actually crossing the line to being in somebody else's why rather than their own?
The first thing you hear right away is, why did something happen? Like, why did that happen? Why didn't they show appreciation? You start automatically going into your story of a victim. It is the I am unhappy with what was happening. And then you start realizing, wow, I had attachment to something being different than what is. So where did that come from? It's not the experience. The experience is completely neutral. It's not personal. Nobody, the situation happened. It's not about taking you down or putting you in a situation that you're uncomfortable. Yes, there's beauty and growth in that, but understanding that everything is neutral. It's just your perception of how you perceive that experience that creates the story inside of you. Mm-hmm. So when you do something from your heart with joy, you're not attached to receiving something back from that person, because you already know the universe is conspiring to support you, or God is always going to create abundance in your life somewhere. It doesn't matter where, it's going to be there. So you have to recognize, if you're attached to this person paying you back, say you lent them money and you're attached to them paying you back because they said they would, there is a level of accountability that has to be in play. But recognizing if you're becoming a martyr or a victim by that situation, you owe me that money, and every time you see them you bring it up, and every time you're in that experience you feel anger. That is in you. That's not the experience that brings that you're not the victim of that experience. Let's put it that way. The experience is bringing the consciousness to you of your attachment to something happening. So if you let go, when you see that person, you know that they owe you the money. It's not like you have to constantly remind them. They know, they feel guilty about it. And if they don't, then you learned a valuable lesson about that person. Do you really want that person in your life then? If they don't have any guilt or shame around the fact that they owe you money and they're not planning on paying you back, you have a choice at that point. Do I keep them in my life, or do I allow them to just go? Release them and let them go on their merry way. It's really a choice. Everything is a choice.
Yeah. Awesome. So I have a challenge. Let's challenge everyone to write down something that is in their heart. How did you say that? That you can bring forth joyfully. Like what is something you give the challenge, Tamra. Give everybody a challenge on how to locate joy in their heart and bring that forth, that it will give them a direct connection to their why.
A little homework assignment?
Yes, indeed. I love it.
Okay. Let's actually look at something. Let's look in the past, because I think focusing on the past or if the future is never really good, but I think it helps you understand the present. So look in your past and find a story in the past that actually you have a lot of pain around, something that you feel you were the victim of. And take a huge step back and look at it as if it's somebody else having that experience. Take it like literally somebody else's. This is a story you're reading about somebody else. How would you receive the information differently? Shift your perspective. Instead of being the person that's in the story, be the observer of the story and see where could you have done something different that would change your attachment or change your perception, something that would bring you more out of your life with that gift. Because the story of that pain, if you're still holding it, is something that's going to come up for you in the future. So if you can learn the lesson based on your past, you can let go of it in the future. So when the life lesson comes again, you can have a huge shift into something more for yourself.
Love it. Love it. Great.
I'd love to hear. Please send me like emails and let me know what you found or what you discovered. I would love, love, love to hear about it.
Okay, so what's your email address where people can email you?
Tamra, Tamra, at emotionalwellnessforlife.com.
Okay. Tamra at emotionalwellnessforlife.com.
Yeah.
And
I would love to hear. Love to see what you discovered about yourself.
It's awesome. And I'm going to take this one step further.
Okay.
I'm going to invite our listeners and people who are watching to find through that experience something that they're grateful for. Through that experience and that learning about yourself, your why, your joy, and find something that you can be grateful for. And that process that you just described, Tamra, is exactly what we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks on What's Your Story. It fits in perfectly. It fits
fabulous.
In perfectly. And so these are the kind of things that I'm looking for if you're interested in sharing something like this, if you're brave enough, if you have the courage to share something like this in the book that I'm putting together called A Daily Gift of Gratitude. And if you want your story to be heard in there, you can just go to mystorymattersnow.com and find the details. And use what Tamra has told you in order to be able to shift your perception of your story, create a new story for yourself, find gratitude in it, because that in itself, I don't know about you, Tamra, but the gratitude piece shifts everything. It creates a mindset of abundance. Yes, this happened. I'm grateful for this. I can learn from this. I can do something with this, rather than I'm being held back and not feeling good about this. It just switches the whole thing and opens the door into a prosperity mindset, an abundance mindset. And we all want to live an abundant life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that all the work that you do, Tamra, is all about living abundantly, living joyfully, living abundantly, living authentically. So I once again want to invite everybody to take advantage of the incredible offer that Tamra's made for us today. Go to her website, emotionalwellnessforlife.com. Go to the questionnaire, get that questionnaire sent out to her, email her also with your experience that we talked about just now, Tamra at emotionalwellnessforlife.com, and really schedule that 20 minutes. It'll be the best 20 minutes you've invested in yourself. I promise you, because I've done it. And I've been working with Tamra, and I'm learning so much about myself, and I have a whole different perspective on a lot of different things. And the ice cream situation was not something that I made up. It's something that really happens. I'm being truly authentic and transparent here. So, and this lady can really, really support you and help you to find your joy, find the reasons why you do what you do, and stay invested in your own why instead of that for someone else. Tamra, you have any final thoughts for our listeners and our viewers today?
Just real quick, gratitude is the quickest way to release yourself from your attachments, absolutely. And please dedicate yourself that 20 minutes. It's all about you, and I want to support you and witness you as you shift some awesome blocks. Let's get some stuff, let's crack some things open and allow it to be free and explore some new potential for yourself.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us on Transformational Tuesdays. This has been an incredible conversation. I invite you to come back next week. We're going to have Dwayne Cummings with us next week. He's called The Sensational Guy. Wrote a great book called The Sensational Salesman. He's going to bring a, I'm sure, sensational conversation to Transformational Tuesdays. So I invite you to come back for that conversation. And in the meantime, please enjoy what I like to call the transformational trails of life. See you next time, everybody. Have a great week.
Bye.